fight for their liberation.
GW Apparel, a clothing that speaks. Something for the kings, something for the queens. Visit uptsites.com and use promo code SLDG22 and receive 11% off your order. Peace.
It's the Ticket Plug. We've been running an online ticket business for over a decade, and now we've created an easy way for you to do the same thing through our private ticket resale community. Joining our community will give you a way to flip your bread and generate profit income consistently. We provide you with all the tools, training, and resources needed to start your life-changing online ticket business. Zero experience needed. To join our ticket resale community, go to thetickettrap.com. Again, go to thetickettrap.com. That's thetickettrap.com.
The Master's Table by DJ RP Beats and Sincere Love to God, now playing on the internet's #1 destination for true hip-hop. Introducing truthhiphop.com, a meticulously curated platform designed for connoisseurs seeking a superior quality of hip-hop. Immerse yourself in an unparalleled experience of 100% bar-heavy, authentically crafted, real hip-hop. Discover the essence of the genre, reminiscent of its golden era, now playing exclusively at truthhiphop.com.
Yeah, like that. Let's see what's in the God's mind. Listen.
I'm a law in the person of sincere love to God. That mean they arms too short like Tar Anthony Shaw. Peace to the family. Peace to the family. Top of the morning. What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Hope everybody's good, getting ready for the weekend and everything like that. Peace to you all. As you know what to do, man, as you coming up in here, man, hit that like button for me. Need you to hit that like button for me. Very important. Share this out on your social media platforms. Let people know that I'm live this morning, man. As y'all know, I'm not usually live on here, you know, early in the morning on a Friday morning or nothing like that. But I'm live right now. So I need you to share this out on your social media platforms and let folks know that I am live right now and we about to chop it up. If you're not already subscribed on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you can be reminded whenever we go live with new episodes of Sincere Love to Godcast. Like I said, we're not usually live Friday mornings or nothing like that, but we didn't get a chance to do our broadcast last week, Sunday, and we haven't done anything throughout the week. And this Sunday, I'm not going to be available either, so we're not going to have a show this coming Sunday. So I wanted to come on here and chop it up with y'all. And there's this article, this topic that I've been wanting to talk to y'all about for a little minute. So I figured why not cover it since I got a little bit of time this morning. Not, you know, today is my off day. I don't have the gym this morning, so I have a little bit of time before I head out to go to work. So decided to hop on here, chop it up with y'all a little bit. So again, like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. We're going to be talking about the connection from Doo-Wop to hip hop, how that has been an unbroken oral tradition and foundational Black American culture. And we're going to break it down through this article that I came across a couple of weeks ago. Like I said, I've been wanting to chop it up with y'all about this article for a little minute now. So I figured today would be a good time. And also, you know, it's the synchronicity of everything because I came across the article like right after the Super Bowl. Like maybe like the next day I seen this article. And the thing that's crazy because the part that kind of stood out to me about Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl performance was when he did that doo-wop scene of the Man at the Garden. He was performing Man at the Garden. He did that doo-wop scene under the light pole and all of that. And you know, Samuel Jackson was like, oh, you trying to use the culture cheat code and all that. That part stood out to me in the performance. And then right after that, I come across this article dealing with the connection between doo-wop and hip hop. And so I'm like, yeah, we got to have a discussion about that. And so I got on my Kendrick Lamar t-shirt this morning. You know what I'm saying? Y'all make sure y'all shout out to my co-host, Nicety Girl. This the Kendrick Lamar t-shirt done by Nicety Girl. Y'all make sure y'all go get that. That's available on her Etsy website. Go to her page. Go to her page on Instagram, Nicety Girl with the #1. And I believe the link is in her bio to her Etsy store where you can get your K. Kendrick Lamar t-shirt. Y'all make sure y'all go and get that. And shout out to my lovely co-host, Nicety Girl. She probably at work or something. But yeah, so we're gonna get into this article, man. Try not to be on here too long this morning. Try to get through it as quick as I can. But I appreciate y'all tapping in with me this morning and everything. Shout out to Breeze Omega. Oh, Nicety Girl's in the chat. Shout out to Nicety Girl tuning in the chat. Breeze Omega, I'm tuning in from work, bro. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So like I was saying, man, when you look at that Doo-Wop scene on the Super Bowl halftime show with Kendrick Lamar, that part stood out to me because it really illustrated the connection between, you know, all of our music genres. The music genres that come from foundational Black American culture have this continuity that is there. But with each generation, it's always like this generational divide that takes place where the youth, you know, they do their own version of what their parents and their grandparents was doing. It's really the same thing, but they put their own spin on it. And there's like this generational divide where, you know, the old heads feel like, oh, y'all fucking up the swag, y'all fucking up the sound. That ain't how you supposed to do it. You know, people get caught up in their traditions and the way that the music sounded during their formative years. We still do it now. We get caught up in our specific golden era and how the music sounded during our formative years. And then, you know, as time goes on and the sound starts to change a little bit, we're so caught up in our own era that we don't appreciate what the youth are bringing to the table and the spin that they putting on the music. And we kind of look down on it. We don't give it the respect that it deserves. And the youth, they feel that disrespect, you know what I'm saying? Which causes a rift between the young and the old, where the youth, you know what I'm saying, they don't feel that it's important to look at their history and to study the history of, you know, where they got it from and where this all comes from. And they feel like since the older generation is not really appreciative of what they're doing, then it must be something different. It must be something new. And so they look at what they're doing as being something that comes from their generation, and they don't appreciate the connection between their parents' generation and their grandparents' generation. And so that creates this generational divide that happens each time we create a new they call it a music genre, you know what I'm saying? Really, there's no such thing as a music genre. It's all the same thing. They just create a newer version of it. You know, they put their little spin on it or whatever. And you know, the history doesn't get passed down. You know what I'm saying? The history gets lost, the connection gets lost. And then also what happens is the slang changes. The slang changes and the terminology something new to you because you don't know your history. You know what I'm saying? And so we trying to bridge that gap. You know what I'm saying? Is that's an important part of this conversation. It's definitely about circling our wagons around our unique culture as foundational Black Americans and putting our stamp on our unique cultural accomplishments and what we've been able to create that impacted the world that other people copy and emulate and then turn around and try to lay claim to it. That's definitely an important reason why we're having this conversation, so that we make sure that, you know, the history is clear, that the narrative is clear about where these things actually come from. But also it's important to bridge the gap between the generations, you know what I'm saying? So that, you know, that will create unity within the culture as well. You know what I'm saying? We have to unify the generations, you know what I'm saying, to show respect and appreciation to one another's sound and our different expressions. Peace to the God, brother Ish in the building. Appreciate you tapping in, King. Appreciate you tapping in. So let's get into this article. And so this article is from 2018, and it was on the Red Bull Music Academy website. You know, Red Bull has been doing a lot of documentation about hip hop specifically and black music in general for a while now. You know, they were attached to a lot of what was going on with hip hop being a part of the Olympics and different things. Red Bull has been sponsoring a lot of historical things surrounding hip hop. You know what I'm saying? But they have a website called the Red Bull Music Academy, and they have this DJ archive on these DJ archives on their website, and that's where I came across this article. And it's an interview with a brother named Paul Winley. Paul Winley. And so, like I said, this is going to draw the connection from doo-wop to hip hop. Paul Winley and the invention of the breakbeat compilation. That's the title of the article, from doo-wop to hip hop. Paul Winley and the invention of the breakbeat compilation. From the DJ History Archives, the label boss and entrepreneur looks back on a career that spans genres and generations. So for people that's not familiar with Paul Winley, he's a musician, songwriter, and everything that comes from the doo-wop era, who eventually became an entrepreneur, started his own label, and his label was one of the first labels to sign and record rappers and hip-hop artists. You know what I'm saying? It was his label. It was Sugar Hill Records, and there was one other one that was real early with recording and signing hip hop acts. I think they mentioned the other ones in this article. I'm drawing a blank right now, but I think they might mention it here in the article, so we might get to that. So let's talk about it. Paul Winley's life neatly joins the dots between 1950s doo-wop and old school hip hop. You know, I wouldn't just say old school hip hop. I would just say hip hop. But that's how the article reads. It says it neatly joins the dots between 1950s doo-wop and old school hip hop. In fact, he views both art forms as part of an unbroken oral tradition that binds every facet of Black American music, which is true. And this is what we've been saying. And now, like I said, this article was written in 2018, which is right around the time when we started to delineate. 2018 was right around the time when we started to really look at our uniqueness as foundational Black Americans and really started to get on code with each other and pick up what Dr. Claude Anderson has been putting down for decades. Right around that time is really when it started. And if y'all remember, in the beginning, when we first started to have this conversation, it was really about busting up the whole Black and brown myth. If y'all remember the early parts of these conversations when we had the hashtag hold your own nuts, we were really trying to bust up the whole myth of the Black and brown coalition. You know what I'm saying? We started exposing how a lot of the so-called brown people really identify as white, and they don't really rock with us like that. There is no Black and brown coalition. This was how the conversation really first started. And then the Africans and Caribbeans started to center themselves in the conversation. We weren't even talking to them at first. We wasn't even mentioning them at first. We was just trying to get the shit out of our people's heads about this Black and brown coalition. You know what I'm saying? And Africans and Caribbeans immediately started to center themselves in the conversation. And then soon after that is when Busta Rhymes and Pete Rock and all of these people started talking crazy about hip hop coming from their culture. And that is really how this whole conversation started to come about and, you know, lead up to where we at now. You know what I'm saying? And so this article was written with perfect timing. Perfect timing when you really look at it. So like he said, in fact, he views both art forms as an unbroken oral tradition that binds every facet of Black American music. Winley was impeccably placed to make such an observation. As a young man, he worked in Manhattan's fabled Brill Building, penning songs for the likes of Big Joe Turner and Ruth Brown. Ruth Brown, by the way, is Rakim, Eric B and Rakim Allah. Rakim Allah is Ruth Brown's nephew. For people that don't know, Rakim comes from a jazz background. You know what I'm saying? I think his mother was a jazz singer, and his aunt was Ruth Brown, who was a famous soul singer. So there's another connection right there. You know what I'm saying? Just connecting the dots between, you know, our music genres and, you know, how it's really all the same thing, man. That's the moral of this whole story. You know what I'm saying? But he wrote for the likes of Big Joe Turner and Ruth Brown. In 1956, he set up his own label, which became home to groups such as the Paragons and the Jesters. By the late 1970s, however, Paul Winley Records had shifted its focus to New York's burgeoning hip-hop scene. And so, you know, another thing that a lot of the detractors try to say when we point out how when the few Puerto Ricans that came around to the park jams and all of that, how their fellow Puerto Ricans and all of that were telling them, you know, why you hanging out with the niggas and that jungle bunny music and all of that. Whenever we point out that reality, they always try to say, well, the older black people didn't like hip hop either. You know what I'm saying? It was a youth thing in the Bronx. It was just the kids in the Bronx, and it was black and brown together, and, you know, everybody was down with each other, but none of our parents liked it. You know what I'm saying? And I always tell them, you know, even some of our parents that didn't get it, because like I said in the beginning of this conversation, there's always that generational divide. That's not unique to hip hop. Same thing happened with bebop. Same thing happened with jazz. Same thing happened with the blues. You know, it happens each generation. You know what I'm saying? That's that generational divide. But even with the generational divide, our parents weren't telling us that it wasn't our culture. They weren't calling it jungle bunny music and telling us we were acting outside of our own culture, which is what their parents were telling them. And it wasn't just their parents, by the way. You know what I'm saying? It was their peers as well, because there was only a few of them that gravitated toward what we was doing and got down with us. The rest of their community was looking at them like, yo, why are you trying to be black? You know what I'm saying? And so that dynamic didn't exist within our culture. Yeah, some of our parents might not have liked the music. They didn't understand what they was hearing or whatever the case may be. They didn't know why we were scratching the records and spinning on our back and shit. But they wasn't saying we were trying to be like another culture. You know what I'm saying? That aspect didn't exist. And I'm just pointing that out because, you know, you see within the article how Mr. Winley, he was doing the doo-wop in the 1950s. And then in the late 70s, with his record label, he started to get involved with the burgeoning hip-hop scene that was happening in New York. You know what I'm saying? So this is an elder. He wasn't part of that youth culture that we're talking about, who saw continuation because he was already inside the music. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't just, you know, just your average person out here who didn't understand what they were hearing or what they were seeing. He saw a continuation of what he's already been a part of all of this time. He's like, oh, this the new swag y'all doing right here. You know what I'm saying? I got my label. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm already in the music business. They're not seeing this side of what's happening within the industry. Let me give y'all a shot. You know what I'm saying? So he had a unique vantage point. He had a unique perspective, and he was able to appreciate what was happening and what was coming up, what the new sound was about to be. You know what I'm saying? He was able to appreciate that early on. So he said, so his imprint was at the vanguard of the movement. In addition to releasing some of the earliest rap records, which featured Winley's daughters, see that connection, that generational connection? You know what I'm saying? Within his own family, it was happening, which featured Winley's own daughters, Tanya and Paulette. It was the first label to record Africa Bambaataa and pioneered the breakbeat compilation with its unauthorized Super Disco Breakbeat series. Speaking to Frank Broughton for this interview in 1998, Winley remained a genuine Harlem character, As both men walking along 125th Street, Winley was greeted by almost everyone over 40. Over breakfast at Sylvia's, a diner where he was a regular for many years, he flirted with the waitresses, revealed that Al Sharpton was his godson, and told stories of being cursed out by Billie Holiday and sharing a venue with Malcolm X, as well as providing insights on the birth of hip hop. So this article is from 2018, but the interview within this article is from 1998. All right. Just want to put that in context. And let me show y'all this image right here. Shout out to Derek Falks in the building. He says, facts. My great uncle used to say rap was niggas talking shit, but he never said it wasn't black culture because talking ish is part of black American culture. Facts. Say that. Where we at? Let me show y'all this image of the brother Paul Winley. And this was like one of the flyers for one of his shows back in the days. Show y'all that. How can I make that bigger? I think like this. Boom. Y'all see that? Y'all see that right there? So this was a flyer where they were selling tickets to a show in 1955. Paul Winley's 10 rock and roll stars, the original Zoom 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 by the Collegiates. All right, so I just want y'all to see that. Let me remove that. Boom. All right, let's continue with the article. Let's continue. Oh no, so this is where the interview begins. So when did you first arrive in New York? He said, I was born in Washington, but my brother was in a group called the Clovers. I think he's talking about Washington State. I don't think he's talking about DC. Usually when people from DC, they just say DC. So I think he's talking about Washington State, if I'm not mistaken. I came up here when they were recording with Atlantic Records. I got close with Ahmet Erdogan and started writing songs for them. I wrote songs for the Clovers and for Big Joe Turner, who had a hit with Shake, Rattle, and Roll. I know a lot of y'all know that song. That song was in a lot of movies and stuff like that. So you wrote that? No, he had a hit with Shake, Rattle, and Roll. The guy that used to do all the arrangements, Jesse Stone, wrote it. I wrote one called Hide and Seek after he did Flip, Flop, and Fly. He did Hide and Seek, and then I wrote for Ruth Brown. I wrote one for her called Smooth Operator. I stayed around Atlantic writing songs, and I started going all over just writing songs. I had some friends from Detroit. They had a group called The Pearls, and they had a kid in there that played piano. Him and I got very close. His name is Dave Clowney. He ended up calling himself Dave Baby Cortez, and I ended up writing songs with him. We wrote songs for a living. There was a group of us, guy named Otis Blackwell. He wrote for Elvis, right? Yeah. There was Otis Blackwell, and then there was Winfield Scott. He wrote Tweedly Dee. There was a lot of us. And this was all in the Brill Building. The Brill Building and 1650 Broadway. Otis used to be like a teacher. Him and Jesse Stone. Jesse wrote a lot of songs. Don't Let Go for Roy Hamilton. A lot of old songs. Do you come from a musical family? Not really. My brother was a singer. My other brother was a singer. We just picked it up, just took it from there. After a while, writing songs there on Broadway, a lot of people started trying to start their own record company. I saw it wouldn't get in the way of writing songs, so I thought I'd start mine. What the hell? Had nothing to lose, wasn't getting nothing anyway, so I started a record company. They said, what year was that? That was in 1956. It was called Winley Records. The first artist I had was a group called Little Anthony and the DuPonts. Then I recorded Baby Cortez. And after that, we found this group out of Brooklyn, a group of hoodlums called the Paragons. They were real hoodlums, believe me, rough guys. So I finally got them to cool down and ended up recording them, you know? Sound familiar, right? Sound familiar, right? Was it most of the early hip hop dudes, and even now to this day, you know what I'm saying? Hip hop come from the streets. You know what I'm saying? Most of the guys within hip hop, they're a little rough around the edges. You know what I'm saying? So the same was true in the doo-wop era. Same was true in the jazz era. And a lot of our music genres. You know what I'm saying? Where was I? They were real hoodlums, believe me, rough guys. So I finally got them to cool down and ended up recording them, you know? They did a record called Florence with me, which was a very big hit. That was the beginning of the doo-wop thing. And then I had another group come along called the Jesters. Then I had another group come along called the Collegians. They made a record called Zoom Zoom. From there, I just went into recording everything. I recorded jazz, I recorded classical, I recorded an old jazz saxophonist. His name was Gene Amons. And I tried to get Billie Holiday to record for me, but she wouldn't. She cursed me out. Really? Yeah, Billie Holiday was a rough woman. She cursed me the hell out. You met with her to talk about it? She used to hang out here behind the Apollo, 126 and 8th Ave. That's where all the old musicians and hustlers would hang out. The Banks Bar and the Braddock Bar. She was around there, and I was backstage to record. She cursed me out a few times. Talking about the doo-wop days, it sounds very familiar. It was young kids. Some were hoodlums. Same thing, man. Same thing. The doo-wop era and the hip-hop era in the beginning, it was the same thing. Y'all heard that? This man has a very unique vantage point within this whole conversation. You know what I'm saying? To be able to make this connection. Being a part of both movements early on. He was at the beginning of the doo-wop movement, signing some of the first doo-wop acts. He was at the beginning of the hip-hop movement, signing some of the first hip-hop acts. He's telling you it's the same thing, man. The doo-wop era and the hip-hop era in the beginning, it was the same thing. It was kids, young kids. So after going from the doo-wop and recording all these different things in the late 70s, I started hearing about rap. My daughter, Tanya, would come home from school and they would be doing all of these rhymes. Where she went to school, there were a lot of other people that were doing rapping. Guys like Grandmaster Flash, Kool Moe Dee, Melly Mel, all in the same junior high school. And then everybody used to go up to the Bronx, to Bambaataa Sting, the Zulu Nation. That was the main stomping ground for the rappers. I used to listen to my daughter rhyming and rapping. And I said to her, I'm going to take you to the studio. You can let me hear what you could do. So my daughter, she was just messing around in the studio, told the musicians to get with her. And she ended up doing a thing called Vicious Rap. We put that out. And she was the first female rapper. What year was that? 1978. Then Tanya and my other daughter, Paulette, they started hipping and hopping and rhyming and rapping around the house. So I took them both into the studio and we did a thing called rhyming and rapping. After a while, Africa Bambaataa used to call me about recording. He had this group called the Zulu Nation, which I knew of. There was 1 million of them. One day I told him to come to the store so we could talk. And when he came, as far as you could see, there was this group of kids. I was like, what the hell is all of this? The whole Zulu Nation came down there. I said, really? How many people were there? Jazzy J, Red Alert, all of them. I mean, a whole gang from the Bronx. They were from the Bronx River Projects. So I started talking to Bam, and he wanted me to record Soul Sonic Force and Cosmic Force. So I told him, okay, we'll listen to them and we'll see what they can do. We got a date in the studio, went in, and we recorded them both. They ended up as pretty good records for that time because records weren't really played. Radio stations wouldn't play them. So we had to go by the route of the hip hop clubs and the dances. Which records were wait. Which records were from the studio? Def Mix was from a tape, right? Well, Bam did the Def Mix up in the Bronx. He did that in the community center. Said he couldn't do that in the studio. It was a live tape. It was like a novelty to me. I just wanted to get out something to show people how rapping and the raw was. It was not in the studio, you understand? But how they were doing it in the dance hall, in the centers and whatnot. It was my purpose for recording it all. He wanted to capture the live essence of what was actually happening within the movement rather than going into the studio to record a record, which I understand, because when you go in the studio and record a record, you know, you don't just go in the booth and just start doing, just, you know, freestyle, do your thing or whatever, and then that's it, that's the record. Nah, you're doing multiple takes, you're doing it over and over again, trying to, you know, create the perfect moment, trying to create the perfect sound, you know, to create a record. Whereas when you in the elements, you know what I'm saying, at the park jams or in the community centers or whatever, there's a raw element to what's happening and what's being created on the spot. The energy between the crowd and the performers, and the synergy between the DJ and the MC, everything that's happening live is what he wanted to capture on that particular record, rather than going in the studio to create a record, which is a different thing. It's a different thing. I thought there was a link to the song though. I was looking for that link to hold on. The song that he did with his daughter. Oh yeah, the Vicious Rap. Let me see. Hold on a second. Hold on. Play a little bit of this record for y'all. Hold on. All right, put this on the screen here. All right. I'm gonna look at the chat in a minute. I'm not ignoring y'all if y'all commenting in the chat. I'm just trying to flow so I don't end up being on here too long. So I'm gonna get to the chat in a minute. And by the way, you know, if you want to support the channel, you could cop a super chat sticker, or you can send us a Cash App, $godcastent. That's $godcastent. That is the Cash App, or you could purchase a super sticker within the chat if you want to support the channel. Y'all can see that right here, right? So this was the song that he was talking about that he did with his daughter, Tanya Winley, Vicious Rap. And I think her name was Sweet Tea, by the way. I think this is Sweet Tea, Vicious Rap. I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but I just want y'all to hear what it sounds like. Check it out. I said the T. So you know that's not a drum machine. So he had her in the studio with a band. You know what I'm saying? Those are live drums. You can hear that. And this is Sweet Tea that's rapping, yeah. You are the K-E-Y. I said the man is a band. You can't deny. He got the sticks in his hand and put on the drums. And other females, they try. Right? So he just heard his daughter rapping around the house, and he was like, yo, let's go to the studio. You know what I'm saying? He immediately saw what was going on, understood what was going on, appreciated what was going on. He like, yo, let's go to the studio. Let's record something. You know what I'm saying? All right, let me get back to the article. Hold on a second. So that was the joint that he recorded with his daughter. And I think he said that was 1978. So that was before Rapper's Delight. And the Def Mix with Africa Bambaataa. Let me play a little bit of that. Just to give y'all, oh, that video is unavailable, actually. That video is unavailable. I can't play that one. That one got removed. I can't play that one. Okay. So let me back to the article. All right. So did you let me look at the chat real quick before I go back to the article. Okay. Shout out to Crew Royalty in the building, Jesse Paris in the building. Appreciate y'all. He said Quincy Jones always said how hip hop was nothing but doo-wop. He said that quite often. True. True indeed. He also said it all comes from Africa, which is a misnomer. But he also said that too. All right, so back to the article. Did you go to the parties? I didn't, but I went to other places where they were. But after recording a few raps, I saw it was changing. It was getting more gangsterish and kind of rough. It was a bad move on my part, but I just didn't want to record any gangster rap. It was very heavy. We're talking violence, shootings, killings, all that stuff. A couple of people I knew started getting deals, and after a while, we had our work cut out because radio stations wouldn't play rap. I ended up taking the bulk of the hard work because I was the leader of it. It was hard for me to get those records played. But the records were selling without airplay, right? Yeah. How quickly did people hear about the tracks? Immediately when they came out, because there weren't that many of them. We used to go into the Wiz, which was an old record store back in the days. Y'all, some of y'all, my old heads in here, y'all remember the Wiz, Sam Goodies and all of that. Then we used to go into the Wiz. You know, the guys who started the company were very good friends of mine with 1,000 records 2 or 3 times a week. It was just underground. The kids knew about it. They were selling like hell. So you already got a built-in customer base. You know what I'm saying? Everybody that's into the whole hip hop thing, everybody that's going to these parties, everybody that's going to the park jams and all of that, you know, they want to get their hands on something tangible where they could listen to this stuff, where they could play this stuff. You know what I'm saying? So they had tapes that were floating around the hoods from the parties. You know what I'm saying? They would record tapes and have those tapes floating around. But actually going in the studio, recording records, being able to have a record, you know what I'm saying? But one of these guys from your hood rapping on it, somebody that you seen at the party rapping on it, you know what I'm saying? You know they was buying that shit like hotcakes. So there were a few other guys like Bobby Robinson who had the Fury and Fire label. That was the other label I was talking about. Enjoy Records. So it was Sugar Hill Records, which was Sylvia Robinson's record label. You had Enjoy Records, which was Bobby Robinson. And you had this brother's label, Paul Winley's label. Enjoy Records. I guess he called it at the time Enjoy Records, and a couple more who were selling rap records underground. Then Sugar Hill Records came along. The Sugar Hill Gang, they were Sylvia Robinson's thing. From out in Inglewood, New Jersey. They got the first big rap records. The label was financed by Morris Levy of Roulette Records. That was the whole mob. Whatever they wanted, they got. So they got Sugar Hill Gang promoted all over the country. What was it that you saw in it? It was grassroots people, man. Grassroots kids, just like the blues, just like gospel. It was grassroots and it was earthy. Again, I got to read that again, man, just because of who this is coming from. You know what I'm saying? Because when we talk like this, oh, we being divisive. Oh, you know what I'm saying? They try to put all of these negative stigma attached to us telling the truth about our own culture, about our own music genres. You know what I'm saying? But just based on who this is coming from, it's like, you know, how do you argue with this? How do you argue with this? He said it was grassroots people. That's what he saw in it. It was grassroots kids, just like the blues, just like gospel. It was grassroots and it was earthy. It was just soul. It came from the soul and it was a natural writing and what they felt. Like a blues singer would just sing from his heart, making it up as he goes. The rappers would do the same thing. The bands with the rappers, they became very competitive with each other. In school, these kids would become competitive, seeing who had the best rhymes. I saw this as part of their education. It was very good in that sense because it showed their ability to create. What was the competitiveness? Something, oh, wait. Was it that competitiveness something that doo-wop groups would have? Yeah, same thing. Did they have battles in the same way that the rappers did? On stage. Yeah. So you get two doo-wop groups. Yeah, always had them. I used to give shows, did shows at the Apollo like that. How did they work? They were good. No, I mean, what was the format? Nothing. It was a show. It wasn't a contest. They were just shows. It wasn't the same as hip hop. In hip hop, they had the contest among themselves. It wasn't a thing of a prize. It wasn't that kind of competitive thing. It was just to the people out there in the audience, they would pick whoever they liked the best and would talk about it. That's what I saw in hip hop. So it's the same thing that was like amateur night at the Apollo. Amateur night at the Apollo wasn't a head-to-head battle, but it was a competition. You had to go out there and prove who was the best. Just like, remember on the movie, one of my favorite movies, 5 Heartbeats, they was competing against Bird and the Midnight Falcons and all these other groups. When they was going out to do these shows and they was trying to get noticed, they was trying to get signed to a record contract or whatever, they had to go through these competition shows. Those was battles. That was like verses, before verses. So there's always been that connection there. That's just a part of our culture. That's just what we do. He said, you said you saw it was very down to earth, but it didn't sound like doo-wop or the blues. The blues is the blues, doo-wop is doo-wop, hip-hop is hip-hop. But a lot of people heard it the first time and just thought, this isn't music. That's what the question, the interviewer is saying. A lot of people heard it for the first time and just thought, quote, this isn't music. He said, I saw it as rhyming with a beat, with music. I just saw it as entertaining. I didn't say that it was music or that it wasn't going to be big thing. It was just something that the kids enjoyed doing. And I always look at things from this perspective. Anything that the masses like to do and anything that the masses can compete and participate in would be big. It's like baseball, football, basketball, boxing. If the masses could get into it and get involved, it would be a big thing. As to how big, that was another story. I just wanted to give it a chance. I didn't see it going worldwide, which it ended up doing. What happened was that they got back to the basics, back to the beat. It wasn't about big productions, just a good rhyme, a good beat, and that's where it started from. And that's where it's at now. I'm just glad to know that it went as far as it went. It's big in Japan, Italy, South America. It's a pleasure to know that. Where did the idea to rhyme come from? That's a good question to ask this individual. To me, that's a very good question for this interviewer to ask this particular person in this particular conversation. And what was his answer? People have been doing that forever. Where did the idea to rhyme come from? The answer is people have been doing that forever. Rapping ain't nothing new. Rapping ain't nothing new. Nothing new was created in hip hop. Everything in hip hop already existed before there was something called hip hop. So again, he said people have been doing that forever. So it's an unbroken tradition. Yeah. People like Jacko Henderson used to rhyme and rap on the radio. This was in 1998, y'all. I just got to remind y'all. This interview is happening in 1998. So it's an unbroken tradition? Yeah. People like Jacko Henderson used to rhyme and rap on the radio. Frankie Crocker was a good rapper, talking about hips, lips, and all of that stuff. The first one, as far as DJs are concerned, was Maurice Hot Rod Hubert. I think that's how you say his last name. Herbert, Hulbert, out of Baltimore. Jacko stole his whole format. The old timers also used to do a lot of rapping in jazz. So this man is just connecting the dots all over the place, man. He's just connecting the dots all over the place. But I want to read that again. So it's an unbroken tradition? Yeah. People like Jacko Henderson used to rhyme and rap on the radio. Frankie Crocker was a good rapper, talking about hips and lips and all of that stuff. The first one, as far as DJs are concerned, was Maurice Hot Rod Hubert out of Baltimore. Jacko stole his whole format. The old timers also used to do a lot of rapping in jazz, like Cab Calloway and Slim Gilliard. Yeah, they was rapping. That was their way of doing things. Where did the kids get it from? What were they listening to that inspired them? These are good questions. I like these questions. I used to ask them, I said, where y'all get this junk from? They said, well, we picked it up on a commercial for Great Bear, auto repair. This man was in his car and he was driving his car and his brakes went and he said something in a rhyme. That's where my daughter picked it up from. Let me show y'all. Let me show y'all that. This is what inspired a lot of kids to rhyme. And I heard it was either Kaz or Melly Mel. It was either Grandmaster Kaz or Melly Mel. I heard mention this commercial in an interview before also. So this commercial was instrumental in kids starting to rap in the 70s. You know what I'm saying? I believe that's a different Sweet Tea. Tanya Winley may be the original Sweet Tea. The 80s Sweet Tea, whose name is Toy Jackson. Yeah, there was another Sweet Tea that came in the 80s. You're right. You're right. What song did she have? She had a dope song. I know exactly what you're talking about. That was probably like 87, 88. That Sweet Tea that you're talking about. What was her song? If you remember the name of the song. I don't remember the name of that song. I'm picturing the video in my mind. I remember that Sweet Tea. King Tim III is credited as the first commercially released song come out on Spring Records almost 5 months before Rapper's Delight. Rap, hip-hop is just Black American culture. Facts. Pig Meat and other Black artists. Facts. Gil Scott-Heron, Last Poets. Facts. It's My Beat was the Sweet Tea joint. Yeah. Watch Profits. Right. Watch Profits. H. Rap Brown. Right. Exactly. But this is the commercial that inspired a lot of the kids in the Bronx to start rapping.
You're riding down the highway in the dead of night when up ahead there's a terrible fright. So you
Sound just like Pig Meat in them. The cadence, everything. The delivery, the cadence.
hit the brakes and they're not all there, and you miss this one by only a hair.
Was this hip hop? Is this hip hop?
Way, but your hand still shakes, and you say to yourself, "Gonna fix them brakes." Drive a little slower, and you say a little prayer. Won't happen again till you get to Great Bear.
Man, people still rhyme like that to this day. People still rhyme like that to this day. It ain't nothing new, man. That's the bottom line. It ain't nothing new under the sun. It ain't nothing new under the sun. Let me get back to the article. We almost finished. Where were we? Okay, he was talking about the commercial. How about the disco DJs like Hollywood and people like that? Hollywood used to play in the bars. There were always DJs in bars around here. From what sort of time? 1950s? Instead of jukeboxes? Yeah, they would turn the jukebox off and let the DJs play records. So DJs was already playing in clubs and bars in the 1950s. Every week, yeah, Saturday nights, Bobby Robinson used to do that. Place called Wellswood, 126th and 7th Avenue. He used to go in there and take his records and get in the booth and play the blues and all of that stuff. They'd cut the jukebox off and party like hell. I used to do it. I did it. I owned a dance hall named Jazzland right there on 125th between St. Nick and 8th Ave. In those days, if you were a licensed dance hall with musicians union, they didn't want you playing records in a union hall. They used to threaten me about playing records in my hall. they'd say, if you play records, we ain't gonna let no musicians play here no more. So there was a little conflict there with that. I said, I don't care. No musicians telling me when I could play records and when I can't play records. What year was this? About 1959, 60, 61, 62, when I had the dance hall. I left in 62. Me and Jacko got together and went to the Audubon Ballroom. I stayed in the Audubon Ballroom from 62 to 67. I had a thing up there. I used to have all the acts up there. Frankie Crocker, Jocko, Rocky G. I bring up acts there. Smokey Robinson, Gladys Knight, the Pips, the Isleys. I had 1,500 kids in there every Sunday. We charged 99 cents and played nothing but records. Someone from the Musicians Union would come up and give me a hard time, but I'd have my crew take him by the arm and read him the facts of life and slip him a couple dollars, tell him to take a walk. Be nice, you know, so that you can walk up out of here. They knew me. They knew that I was serious business. They knew that I wasn't going to stop just because of no Musicians Union. And you were actually playing records yourself? Yeah, sure. I used to be on the radio doing commercials. A lot of the people, especially Frankie Crocker, used to pick up on what I was saying. I used to say, hey, y'all, this is Paul Winley. Come on up to the Audubon Ballroom, 166 in Broadway, 99 cents. I did that for a long time. So you're talking about doing drops on the radio. You know what I'm saying? Until I got tired of it after Malcolm X got killed up there. Malcolm X's Organization of Afro-American Unity held weekly meetings at the Audubon, and it was there that he was assassinated in 1965. Him and I used to be up there every Sunday until he got killed. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Am I tripping? Wow, I knew I wasn't tripping. I knew I wasn't tripping. Today is February 21st, y'all. Today is February 21st, y'all. Anybody know what that marks? Anybody in the chat realize what today marks? And it's 2025. So that wow. I'm waiting for somebody to respond in the chat. Interesting how you're discussing this today, and it's the death anniversary of Malcolm X's assassination. Facts. Facts. The synchronicity is crazy. 60 years to the day. 60 years to the day, Malcolm X was assassinated in the Audubon Ballroom. Wow. Can't make this up. You can't make this up. Oh, man. All right, let's continue. Let's continue. Were you there that night he was killed? No, they had a dance that night, a calypso dance, so I wasn't there. But when I heard he had got shot, me and Ralph Cooper, we went up there because he was very close to him. After that, I stopped giving dances at the Audubon. I just backed out in 67, 68, and then in the 70s, I did other things. Wow, y'all, this is crazy. This is crazy, y'all. R.I.P. Malcolm X, man. How about the hip hop DJs? The fact that they were scratching and cutting. When did you first hear that? Well, Flash and them used to do that with Bambaataa. That's when it started. And really, that's the only thing that's new about hip hop was the scratching the records and all of that. I don't think nobody was doing that before hip hop. Because you put out breakbeat albums. Yeah, a lot of DJs couldn't get the records. And even when they could find them, I was disgusted by the prices the record shops was charging. They used to charge so much just because the record was hard to find. $25, $30 just for one record. I mean, not a 12-inch. There were no 12 inches, just a 45. Then they'd put it on a 12-inch. They would go to the studio and have a 12-inch plate made. When did that start? When the DJs first started in 76, 77, getting plates made caused them a fortune. I was pissed off with a lot of that stuff, so I started putting out the breaks, and it picked up from there. I put out 6 volumes of those things. So he was just taking the breaks, making records out of just the breaks alone, and pressing them up on vinyl to give to the DJs. You know what I'm saying? Where did you first see a DJ cutting and scratching? One of the dances around here, I like to watch them because these things were educational and it was artistic. Those kids took a lot to learn to scratch. My son was one, called himself DJ Gangster, played with Flash in them. He would collect records. I used to watch him a lot. And then when I bought my store on 125th Street, I used to let them rehearse there. They be cutting and scratching. They get gigs. They do all of the dances. And that's when I really paid attention to it. Bambaataa brought it from Bronx River, and there was a club where they all used to go to in the Bronx. Disco Fever? Yeah. That was a madhouse. I used to go past there. Bobby Robinson used to hang up there. I didn't. They were fascinating times. You know, you go through these eras and you don't pay it that much attention when you're involved with it. It's just a day-to-day thing. You look up years later and people are asking you about this and that. And at the time, it wasn't really that important. And that's the thing about a lot of the things that we do. That's the thing about a lot of the things that we do. It comes from us so naturally, we don't really think of much of it when we're doing it. We don't look at it as being anything special. But when the world gets access to it, when outsiders see what it is that we're doing, they're fascinated by it. You know what I'm saying? And that's why they turn around and they build industries around our cultural expression. They create infrastructure to be able to siphon our intellectual property out of the community and enrich themselves because we don't see the value in it. For whatever reason, we do all of these ingenious things naturally, and we don't see the value in it. They taught us that it's just some nigga shit, and so we look at it as just some nigga shit. Ain't nobody gonna care about this. You know what I'm saying? We just doing some nigga shit over here. We undervalue it. But when other people see it, they understand the value in it immediately. And they want to lay claim to it. They want to colonize it. They want to gentrify it. And they build industry and infrastructure around it in order to enrich themselves. So that's something that we got to clean up within the culture. We have to stop looking down on what the kids is doing, the new thing that they doing. We need to start peeping game. And we create the infrastructure around it like this brother was doing. This brother saw what it was, and he took his record company and said, yo, y'all come in the studio. I'm going to record y'all. Let's make some records. You know what I'm saying? That's what we got to start doing, and stop looking down at the youth and their cultural expression and dismissing it, because that makes them feel like it's nothing either. We don't appreciate it. They don't appreciate it the way that it should be appreciated. So you got the generational rift from that, but you also have the devaluing of the cultural expression that could be, you know, something extremely valuable. It always ends up being something extremely valuable once it makes it around the world. So we need to take ownership of it. We need to put the gates up around it, and we need to be the ones monetizing it. That's the thing that we need to learn from our history. So it's cool for us to look back at what we did and lay claim to the culture and talk about how great we are and what we did and how other people haven't been able to do what we've done. That's all fine. But we also need to analyze the mistakes that we made. We also have to look at where we went wrong and make the proper corrections as we move forward. How long I've been on here? All right, I got to get ready to get up out of here. Let's finish up this article. They did the same thing with rock and roll, Undisputed Truth. That's a fact. He said, you really saw hip hop as part of an unbroken tradition from jazz and blues and doo-wop. It was just taking another step higher. Is that how most people saw it? No. Most people saw it as just a lot of noise. Yeah. And today, a lot of them resent a lot of the language. It got to the point where it got disgusting when it became commercial. The dirtier it got, the more violent and ugly it got, the bigger it got. That's what happened until people started putting their foot down and screaming and hollering. It used to be like dance music, play it in the clubs, and people would start looking for it. And that way, it's still underground. So when it's our thing, it has a certain amount of integrity to it. It has a certain amount of innocence to it. You know what I'm saying? But when other people get their tentacles attached to it, it gets corrupted. It gets misdirected. They start to attach their ideas to our cultural expression. They start to attach their mentality and their lower vibrations to our cultural expressions in order to create the world that they want to see. Our cultural expression is the engine that drives it all. In order for them to do their social engineering, they use our own cultural expressions. We talked about this. Actually, we have a clip from Dr. Amos Wilson, me and DJ RP Beats on our first album. Let me find that real quick. Hold on. Let me find that real quick. Let me find that real quick. On our first album, the Master Elements album, the intro to that album talks about this. Let me find that real quick. Bear with me 1 second, y'all. I want to tie this in because what he's saying is right and exact. It's very important. What he's saying is right and exact, and it's very important. These are the things that we have to learn from. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Let me get to the part. Oh, man, listen to this. Okay, hold on a second. Listen to this, man. Listen to this. And I'm probably going to get a strike for playing my own music, but hey. Share this tab. Oh, how do I get back here now? Hold on. Let me play this right here. This is the intro to our first album, the Master Elements album, which was really like a compilation. This is how me and my brother RP Beats, we became Master Elements through working on this project. It really was a compilation project that he was working on with a bunch of artists. And, me and him just had chemistry and we clicked, but this was the intro to the album. Y'all listen to this right here, man. Let me just play it. In context of what I was just reading from what the brother Paul Winley was saying, right? Let me read that again real quick. Let me read that again, and then I'm gonna play that intro. Let me go back a little bit. So you really saw hip hop as part of an unbroken tradition from jazz and blues and doo-wop. Yeah, it was just taking another step higher. Is that how most people saw it? No. So most people saw it as just noise? Yeah. And today, a lot of them resent a lot of the language. It got to a point where it got disgusting, where it became commercial. The dirtier it got, the more violent it got, and uglier it got, the bigger it got. That's what's happened until people started putting their foot down and screaming and hollering. It used to be like just dance music, play it in the clubs. People would start looking for it. That way it was still underground. Right? So again, we allow other people who are hostile towards us to utilize our cultural expressions and attach their mentality to it. So listen to this intro.
Man, Master Elements Music.
The motive of a revolution, the objective of a revolution, and the result of a revolution.
Master Elements Music.
You're not a gangster. You are the very people of God.
I'm telling you, you don't know what our revolution is.
Lyrics that speak to the pain and the suffering and the low down life of the black man and woman.
Master Elements Music.
Therefore, you see, when you let another people take over your music, when you let another people take over your dance and attach their content to it, they will use your own music and your own dance and your own rap lyric and your own poetry and your own cultural symbols to carry their message into your body and into your mind.
Master Elements Music.
People take over your music. Therefore, you see, when you let another people take over your music, when you let another people take over your dance and attach their content to it, they will use your own music and your own dance and your own rap lyric and your own poetry and your own cultural symbols to carry their message into your body and into your mind. Therefore, you see, when you let another people take over your music, when you let another people take over your dance and attach their content to it, they will use your own music and your own dance and your own rap lyric and your own poetry and your own cultural symbols to carry their message into your body and into your mind.
Master Elements Music.
You do have a responsibility to wake up, clean up, and stand up.
Master Elements Music. And so y'all go check out that album, by the way, man. That album is available on all streaming platforms. Plus, we got the Spear and the Shield, as well as the Master's Table. For those of y'all that's not familiar, you need to go ahead and get familiar. So we do have a responsibility to wake up, stand up, and clean up. You know what I'm talking about? Shout out to some chick named Star. She gifted 5 memberships. Appreciate you, Star. Always showing love. Appreciate you. But yeah, we do have a responsibility to wake up, stand up, and clean up this thing of ours. You know what I'm saying? It's our responsibility. And so me and my brother DJ RP Beats, we definitely doing our part. So y'all need to go check out the catalog and get in tune. So the next question was, where do you think it's headed? The final question was, where you think it's headed? It's headed wherever it's headed. I wouldn't put an end to it. It may put a change to it. People change, their tastes change, times change, things fall off, and then come back years later. It's like anything else, like the old blues, the old jazz. At this time, I would say people just enjoy it because it's going to be here a while. And so again, that interview was conducted in 1998. 1998. And so y'all chop this up and send this to all the naysayers, all of the people out there trying to lay claim to hip hop and say that it's not foundational Black American culture and trying to make it this black and brown thing, or it came from the Caribbean, or it's this universal thing, or it all comes from Africa, and all of the stuff that they saying. Anything but give us our props and our credit. You know what I'm saying? Anything besides giving us our props and our credit, they will say anything. But that article right there, I mean, how do you argue with that? How you gonna argue with Paul Windley? You know what I'm saying? He lived and participated through all of the eras. So shout out to him. Shout out to him, and shout out to whoever did that interview for documenting that history. You know what I'm saying? Very important. Very important. And so I appreciate y'all tapping in with me this morning, man. Like I said, this Sunday, I'm not going to be available, so Nicely and I won't be doing our regular broadcast on Sunday, but we'll probably do one later on in the week. I think we have an episode of the Black Business Showcase scheduled for next week. I believe we do. So we should be back rocking and rolling next week. But yeah, that does it for today's episode of Sincere Love the Godcast, man. I appreciate y'all tapping in with me as always. Remember, family, I am not the master teacher. I am only the master student and signal booster for the voices of the new Black media. I'm out of here. Peace and Black love.
Yeah, like that. Let's see what's in the God's mind. Listen.